Well, as you can see, it's a beautiful day to install the American Woodshop Solar Array, and we're here with Jerry Heminger, and it was easy to go with him because these guys have installed over 100 systems that really save you money. Now, the first step was doing an energy audit, and how do you go about that?
You know, we were here a few weeks ago and we walked through your facility and we looked at your energy bill and figured out that you needed some lighting changed, and you know, once we changed the lighting, we figured out there was still some energy that could be offset through a solar array.
Okay, and in this case, we work with the city and the county to get the proper permits, and we're going to do what's called a grid tie. So we have an inverter that puts this power back onto the grid, and that's going to save me money on my monthly bills. So you have to work with your municipality on that one, or the electric utility company. Now, the heart and soul of this system, ultimately you can't go anywhere without the modules. Let's look at one of these. Now, they call them panels, but they're really modules, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and they're rated for 30 years. And how are they for hail?
Great for hail.
Okay, so they'll stand the impact, and that's not an issue. Now, let's swing this around and look at the back here. So on the back of the module, some cabling. How is this connected to the system?
So Scott, this is simply, we bug the panels together via the leads.
Okay.
Envision this as the end of one of the leads of the next panels.
Right.
We simply plug it together, and then this wire goes a home run back to the inverter.
Okay, so that clicks right in there.
Yep.
Okay, so that's straightforward. Now swing this back around, and now let's take a look at how the panels are installed to the roof. Now, what's the first part of the process to installing a solar array?
The first thing we do, Scott, we get up on the roof, we put L brackets on the roof, we fasten them to the roof truss.
Okay.
The next step is just simply attaching a rail to that L bracket. Once those rails are in place, then we mount the panels on the rails.
Okay, now for this system, we have a total of 14 panels, and it's tied to an inverter. But to match this will cut my utility bill about in half every month, and that's going to save me a lot of money. But what are the other benefits to going solar like this?
Saving energy.
Okay, well, across the board, that saves money, that reduces your carbon footprint.
It says everything about solar. Saving energy, reducing reliance on the utilities to produce your power, being green, reducing carbon emissions because of more energy being used by the utility, all encompassing. Everything you're doing, Scott, with your lighting retrofit to your solar array, you're reducing that taxation on the grid of energy usage.
Okay, so I want you to understand what you see behind me, that represents a day's work. So if you have a good installer, you can get this project knocked out in a day when they know what they're doing, and these guys are great. Now let's go look at the inverter, because that is the heart of this system. Ray Varvey.
Hi, Scott.
Now he's the expert on inverters. Now, why do we need this on a solar array?
Well, Scott, the inverter, the main job of the inverter is to convert the DC power, which is produced by the solar array, into AC power, which you can use for your tools, for your household items, but it also feeds power back to the grid, which allows you to kind of offset your consumption. It feeds power back. If you're not using more than you're producing, then it will actually feed power to the utility.
So this is really the brain of the operation. Not the heart and soul is on the flip side, the panels. Here's the brain. This is the smart part of it.
This is the brain, this is the traffic cop.
Oh,
this decides what goes where. It directs where the electrons actually go.
Okay, so this is hooked into our main panel, and it's also hooked through the meter. Now, it actually makes the meter run backwards in theory. It's a digital, so it doesn't, but it knocks off consumption, so that's where I get my payback on this, from the utility company.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now, this also does another job about safety, hooking into the grid. Describe that for us.
Well, what the inverter does is it first looks at the utility, it looks at the grid, and it verifies that the voltage and the frequency is exactly where it needs to be, that it's within this small window.
So it's phase matched?
It's phase matched.
Okay.
So then if everything is good, it will connect and allow the power to go back to the utility. Now, if you have an outage or for some reason a storm, something in the utility goes away, that grid is not there, the inverter realizes that and immediately disconnects. So at that point, you can't send power back to the utility. You can't put an alignment in danger or anything along those lines.
Okay, so now you have a way that you can do a grid tie, and that's what you want to do versus having a bank of batteries. There are no batteries in my shop. It all goes back onto the grid, and that grid becomes my battery, and that's how I save money. Now, we're going to get out of here, Ray, so they can do their tests on this and the proper equipment, and then we will get to see the output side of this. Come on, let's get to it.
All right.
Once the solar grid is complete, they continue with the testing.
0.0. Okay, go ahead and shut that. Let's put the cover on before we energize the AC.
After the initial commissioning and test, we are now up and live and producing power right now about 2,600, a little over 2,600 watts.
And it says almost 1 kilowatt hour, and that's just in the first 15 minutes of it, in Ohio. Now, the cool thing is, on a cloudy day, I'll still be generating power with my solar array. That's a myth, and Ohio solar works, okay? Now, the other thing you said about the guys that were working on this job.
Yeah, I'm just these guys, I'm really impressed with the job they did, the safety that they did, the way they did the connections. It's a very clean, very good system all the way around.
And that leads me into one very important point. Solar. It's something you need to step up to the plate and do, because I'm just one wood shop. But if more people in America start doing this, we can make a huge difference out there. Thanks a million, Ray.
Thanks, Scott.